Hey, dude, what's up, my friend? How you doing, brah?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Happy hour. Oh, I didn't change the thing. Hang on. While the 500, I had to do a sideline to sideline thing this morning.
Oh, okay.
So happy hour, and this is OutDrank The Coverage Happy Hour, brought to you by Grandeur Pest Solutions. We were talking with him, and he was like, "Hey, y'all don't have to run a spot at the beginning of the happy hour. It kind of kills the happy hour vibe." And I actually kind of agreed with him. So I appreciate that. That doesn't mean we won't be promoting them here today, because we will be, just like this. Ka-chow. Look at that.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah. If this is your first happy hour, we do. Can you hear me okay, intern Noe?
Perfect.
All right. I can hear you great. Hope everybody can hear us. Wow. We've already got 1,000 people watching so far. All right, so the way happy hours work, it's just a chance for intern Noe and I to kind of talk about the big news. And man, I got to tell you what, all by accident, but the way we plan these every other week, it seems like the third one each Monday that we've done these, there's been huge breaking news or huge events. Today, of course, being NFL free agency day one. We'll start chronologically and we'll work our way down as we do all that. But before we do that, the most important thing, intern Noah, how you doing? And what are you drinking?
I'm doing well. Today I'm drinking, well, in honor of St. Patrick's Day coming up this Sunday, I'm going to drink old fashioned with Jameson infused. So,
Oh no, we've already had an issue.
Oh, Dalton, is he okay?
Dalton's falling. Hang on, I got to get the thumbtack. Keep talking about what you're drinking.
I'm drinking old fashioned with Jameson as my alcohol. So I have some Bar Smith old fashioned mix in here. I have some cherries in here. I got rhubarb bitters, which is pretty good. So I'm enjoying my drink. Terry, if you're still alive and coherent over there, how are you doing, buddy? And what are you drinking?
I had to give Dalton mouth to mouth. I might have to go back later and do it again just for funs. I am drinking. Would love to have a sponsorship with these guys because I really do like their stuff. Good Night Loving vodka, made right here in the state of Texas. It says
that is pretty good.
Yeah, it's really good vodka, and it's still newish to where a handle is still a really good price. So get it now while you can. Legitimately, the fiance and I were out this past weekend during the week to get stuff because you and I did a big thing. Speaking of Roadhouse, we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But we did a big thing and we needed alcohol. And so I went ahead and got like 3 of these to be safe. Because, I mean, they're at $24. And you remember Tito 10 years ago was kind of at that same thing at this point. It was new. It was Texas, even though actually it comes out that Tito, and this is probably the same way, it's actually mass produced. It's not, individually bottled like they claim. But anyway, it's still good vodka. So that's what I'm drinking. All right, where do you want to start? Do you want to go? Let's just go from top to bottom. I think the first news is still kind of the biggest. That broke, and that is Russell Simmons is signing a team-friendly 1-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I said Russell Simmons. Russell. FGM producer is going to try out.
Have you already outdrank the coverage, sir?
No, I hadn't even started yet. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe my whole broadcast career is based on I need to outdrink before I start. But so Wilson heads to Pittsburgh, and you and I had talked about that on the happy hour. We had talked about that all the way back when it came known that he was going to be released. You and I felt like Atlanta or Pittsburgh seemed to be the best fit. And we'll talk about what Atlanta's done. But it seemed like it would be the best fit. And I really do like this move for Pittsburgh and for Wilson.
So I guess my question is, how long will Wilson stay, and what's the future for Kenny Pickett?
I don't think Kenny Pickett ever had a future. You know me. I've never been big on him neither is his hands. I've never been big on Kenny Pickett at the pro level. I loved him as a college. He was that old school that if it had been 10 years, 15 years earlier, Kenny Pickett would have been at Texas Tech in that air raid scheme. I loved what he did at college. I just never thought his game translated to the pro game.
I mean, he was still winning games at the pro level, but I mean, he wasn't looking impressive. You see that Trubisky left to go back to the Bills, so I guess he'll just be slotted in at the 2 spot. Wilson only has a 1-year deal. It's like, a little over $1 million. The Broncos are going to eat that 37 million this year, and then they got 85 million in dead money they can play with for the next 2 seasons. So um, they could front load it this year, just take the L because
Yeah.
they're getting rid of players. They already traded Jerry Judy, so they're trying to get rid of
Okay,
players.
Justin Simmons.
Yeah, they cut Justin Simmons after 8 years. I know a lot of Bronco fans loved him, and him leaving it sucks a lot for them. But they need to go a different direction. They need to go younger. They need to just start over. And I think they're going to do that. They're going to either commit to Peyton for a few more years or cut bait on Peyton.
No, I don't think they're cutting bait on Peyton. I
Which
think
means,
they're all in on him for the next few years at least.
and that's fine. He has a winning pedigree. He's won a championship.
Does he?
He's been a winning coach. He's won a championship. He's done a.
Doesn't it seem like maybe this is how he always was? Maybe the cover of New Orleans, and they won it right after after the hurricane, and all that feel good, and he had a Hall of Fame quarterback. But I don't know, man. It feels like we're getting to learn about a different Sean Payton here in Denver, at least through the first year. And I don't know. He's becoming more of crudgety Bill Parcells than I think people realize that he was all the time. And I don't know, man. I feel like people are kind of souring on him, especially the way he did. Whether you feel that Wilson was, 85 million, 100 million, all that, it just felt like what they did to him. I don't understand how that wasn't breaking some kind of rules inside their labor agreement with the NFLPA, where basically, by all accounts, they were trying to get Wilson to tee off on him so that they could then suspend him and say, hey, you unbecoming of the team, we're suspending you. We don't owe you any money. And to give Wilson credit, he basically allowed Sean Payton to just yell at him on the sideline a few times. I don't know. I'm just not as big on Sean Payton as I used to be.
I mean, I guess I could see the post Breeze Sean Payton not being as fondly looked at, but I think to me, I look at him as a pretty decent coordinator.
Yeah.
That took the Saints from 06 to 09 was one version, or I guess 06 to 2013 was one version of the Saints, and then he took about 3 years where he just took some L's. Then the team wasn't that good, and then he changed philosophy, went pretty hard on defense. And they had a really good run from 2017 to 2020. Breeze retires. They're kind of average. He retires. I don't know. I like this. I saw some diversity in his coaching during that period in the 2010s. So I still think there's something there. I really don't know what the Broncos are going to look like this season. I think they should probably take a step back, and I think that would be the best thing for them long term. They got rid of Russell. They got rid of Judy. They're gonna get some picks. Just hit on some of those picks and just hope that Marvin Mims becomes that second option to Courtland Sutton.
You bring up a good point though. It's hitting on the picks, because for all the talks about, oh my God, how terrible it was for Denver, Seattle didn't really do a lot with those picks. And you can kind of make the case that might go down as one of the worst trades for both teams in the history of the NFL, because I mean that was literally just a wash for both sides. Now, where Seattle benefited was they didn't have a big salary, call it around them, and so their salary cap was a little bit clearer. But either way, neither one of them really got any benefit from that trade.
Right now, everybody's thinking that the Seahawks actually did really well because they got Geno. They got a starter for a few years until they get a young person that could be there for 15 years. They got Charles Cross, a tackle. They got Abrams, another tackle.
Okay. They got Noah
Fant, Reek Woolen in the draft. They got Kobe Bryant as a nickel corner. So they got some talent through this trade, and I really think they had it last 2 years. They had really good drafts. Getting Jackson Smith and Jigba this year was pretty good, or this past season. So yeah, I think right now people are going to view Seattle as winning this trade, but again, 10 years from now, you might be right. It might be an L for both of them, but as of right now, Seattle has really dominated that trade.
I guess again, I just for what they got in the draft haul, to me, they've done okay. There's not one guy out of those players you name that are cornerstone players. And if you're going to trade a guy that's won you a Super Bowl and went to another Super Bowl and still young enough to where he can be productive, you think you at least get two cornerstone players. And I don't. They've got some really okay players. Let's see. To kind of tie this onto the Cowboys, I think if you're a Cowboy fan, Tyron Smith not being signed yet is a good sign. I think Dallas, the reports came out that Dallas and them are going to part ways, and Jerry Jones was quick to say that's not what we said. We basically have just said right now what his agent is seeking, we're not really wanting to do. That doesn't mean we don't want him back. We would love to have him back, but it's going to have to be at a team friendlier deal. And so the longer he stays unsigned, I think the better chance that he ends up. And this is the great thing about doing this show live. Anything we say now can literally be outdated in 5 seconds because it could come over the wires as we're talking that he signs. I still think he ends up back in Dallas. I think he's going to end up back in Dallas when all things said are done. But we are starting the yearly, oh my God, Dallas isn't signing anybody. Jerry doesn't care. Look, I would love to have Josh Jacobs. He's the one that, like, man, I was kind of hoping with the whole running back market that he might slide under under everybody's radar and Dallas picks him up. But everybody else, I'm fine with. Go oversign Tyler Badaz. Go oversign Dorrance Armstrong. Go oversign those guys because we're going to be talking next year, and half of these players that we're naming now, mark this down, half of the players that we're naming now will be post-June 1st cuts next year. That's how NFL free agency works. Everybody gets excited, contracts get passed out, and half of them won't end up playing up to the value of that contract.
Yeah, as Terry was saying, Commanders have been pretty busy. They signed former Cowboy Dorrance Armstrong.
Good for him.
They signed former Cowboy center Tyler Biotish. They signed tight end Zach Ertz. So, Commanders are making some moves. They also signed Austin Eckler from the Chargers.
I like that move. I do really legitimately like that move. I like Eckler. Eckler would have been another one for the right deal. I wouldn't have hated as a Cowboy. I will say this, though. He always seems to be hurt. And so that's a big red mark. But it's just when he's on the field, he's one of the most exciting running backs in the league.
And they got Brian Robinson to pair with him, so it'll be a nice little 1-2 punch. And if, like you said, Eckler gets hurt again, they still have Brian Robinson. Antonio Gibson won't be with the Commander anymore. He left to go to the Patriots. So that's pretty good. I think they like those all-purpose type running backs in New England, a la Kevin Falk, James White and in a short burst, Deion Lewis. They like those type of players. It's been pretty interesting. Just today has been pretty interesting. Like just a lot of big signings. The biggest one I think today might be Kirk Cousins.
Let's talk about that, dude. So Kirk Cousins, first off, I will say this. I've always liked Kirk Cousins. You and I talked about him extensively year before last, about because the Vikings are on one of those weird years where they were winning games, but every game was by one score or less. He had like third most game-winning drives in one season by a quarterback in like 30 years. And then the whole Netflix show came out. And if you didn't like Kirk Cousins more after that, then you're not human. He just genuinely seems like one of those really good dudes. But this dude has now, in his NFL career, will have had almost $500 million in money, one playoff win. And I'm not equating playoff wins to money. I think that's stupid. I think when you try to do that, you're making a fool of yourself. A quarterback's salary is not just what they do in the playoffs. But when you start to talk about at the end of stuff, I love the move, though. I absolutely love this move. I will say this right now. If Atlanta drafts right, Atlanta has just stepped into being a Super Bowl contender on the NFC side.
Well, I mean, they've drafted right, and then the last season they addressed a lot of their defensive issues by signing free agents. All those guys will be back next season, so you add a capable quarterback that can get it in the hands of a very athletic tight end, a tall wide receiver, and an all-purpose running back, and a grinded-out running back. I mean, and they already have one of the top 10 offensive lines in football. That offense is going to be pretty fun to watch in 2024.
I don't know. Did you send this one on the notes? I'm trying to look at our notes, but I'm also flipping through. But Saquon Barkley is now an Eagle.
Yes, he is.
38 million.
37.75, 26 million guaranteed. I think there was a running back that did leave. Oh yeah, DeAndre Swift. He left the Eagles for the Bears. That kind of set the market for running backs. That was kind of the big running back deal. And then throughout today we're recording on a Monday. It's a live show. There's just been like a plethora of running backs that have been leaving. Gus the Bus Edwards, he left Baltimore for the Chargers.
Good move.
Yeah. And that was a 2-year deal. I don't know the actual money specs, but again, another big one. Aaron Jones gets released by the Packers.
Yep.
Who the Packers then signed Josh Jacobs to a 4-year, $48 million deal. I think that's a great move, and I think that also might result in AJ Dillon not returning. He's a free agent this season. This is his first time exploring free agency, so I think AJ Dillon's going to be, checking out other teams. He's a slower back. He's a big guy, but I like him. He's very useful. He's a 2nd and 2 guy. He can get you some touchdowns, and then he can just churn some yards in the second half.
I mean, is there a world where Dallas tries to get both of them?
Well, I was thinking Derrick Henry and Aaron Jones, but
I still think Derrick Henry is going to want $15 million a year. I mean, for all the talk about the running back market looks like it's playing out at about 10 a year. Mm-hmm. When you look at all the deals, Pollard went to the Titans 3 years, $24 million. Yeah. Barkley, $36 million. I didn't see what the Josh Jacob numbers were.
4 years, 48.
So about 10 million when you average in what they're getting as a bonus and all that, about 10 million a year. Yeah. I thought it was funny. I thought Tiki Barber, did you see where he came out before all this? I think he said it yesterday. Barkley should not, if Barkley wants to be a real man, he shouldn't sign with the Eagles or the Cowboys. Like, dude, seriously, like, get over that. Like, just, hey, great. You were in an era where you were, the Giants were able to deal with your fumble issues and allow you to kind of turn into a really good back, even though nobody seemed to like him on the Giants.
I am so happy he retired after the 06 season, so he could not get a Super Bowl ring the following season. Yeah. He just seemed like the worst person. And then,
the whole wife thing.
Yeah, the whole wife thing. Yeah. I think where
him and Rondé come from the same bloodline, because Rondé Barber seems to be the exact, and it's weird too, because Tiki Barber is very personable. Like, he's enjoyable to watch when he talks and stuff, and he's funny, but it's like, come on, dude. But just to tell a current player in today's climate, especially at running back, hey, don't sign with the opponent, that makes you less of a man. Dude, you're just trying to get a paycheck.
That's all he's trying to do.
Let's see here. Kind of feel like just you have
Brian Burns. Tell me about, what are your thoughts on that contract?
Dude, Brian Burns gets traded from the Panthers to the Giants. Really good pass rusher. But it's the Giants, and they do what the Giants do, and they overpay for a okay to good. Like, if you put him on a team that already has 2 or 3 pass rushers, I think he's brilliant. I think that's a great move. But to pay him over 100, go ahead.
That's the point. They have Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau. Add him there.
Thibodeau took a step back last year, though, man.
But he doesn't have to be the main guy. So you have Thibodeau, you have Burns, you have Dexter Lawrence up the middle. In theory, I liked the move, but I don't like the money they paid him. So that's why he's getting 5 years, $150 million, almost $88 million guaranteed.
That's the big thing.
He's a great player. I just would not have spent that much money when your main concern is not pass rush.
And this is why I'm not crying that Dallas isn't signing all of these guys, because, again, I was very serious. And I would be saying this exact same thing if Dallas was signing them all. Half of these guys are going to be June 1st cuts within the first 2 years of their contract. And some of them will play well, but you were not going to be able to play to the contract numbers when it comes down to the capology side of it. And that's a perfect example. He is a perfect example. I could see him having over the next 2 years 10 sacks and 12 sacks, 22 sacks in 2 years. That sounds great. Oh, wait, you're a $22 million guy on our cap? Yeah, we can't have that.
And we're 6-11.
Yes, exactly. And we're 6-11. Oh, no, we got to 7-10, guys. We just re-signed Daniel Jones to a $400 million. No, they didn't really do that. I'm just saying it jokingly.
You know, the funny thing is, Kirk Cousins' contract is 4 years and $180 million. Daniel Jones is 4 years, $160.
Yeah. Good point.
Like just $20 million. And I love what the Falcons did. Give Kirk Cousins the money. You and I both are on that Cousins bandwagon. We know he's a really good quarterback. You saddle him up with a decent defense and young talent like they got there, that's going to be a dangerous team.
All right, Noah Fant re-signing with the Seahawks. Jacoby Brissett's going back to New England. I mean, they just traded Mac Jones. You got to figure they're going to probably try to trade up and maybe get Daniels.
Okay. What are your thoughts on the Jaguars getting Mac Jones to back up Trevor Lawrence?
I think it's brilliant. I think a couple reasons. I think last year, if you had a better backup than CJ Beathard, I don't think Trevor Lawrence plays the last 8 weeks of the season. That dude legitimately really hurt his throwing arm. And that's why I kind of give the Jaguars a pass on what everybody's calling the collapse. I mean, not that he was playing great anyway, but I think it's time to realize that Lawrence isn't quarterback Jesus. He's not revitalizing the position. He's a really good, solid quarterback, though. You can win with him. And I think last year, though, if they'd have had a better backup, you were able to sit him. I think for Mac Jones, it's a great deal because Lawrence tends to miss a couple games, so you're probably going to get some time. It's a 1-year deal, I think, with the trade and everything. I think he has 1 year left. I think it's a great deal all around for both sides. If Lawrence misses a lot of times, I don't think Mac Jones as the guy is a bad thing. I think Mac Jones took a lot of crap this year, but let's remember he had a special teams and a defensive coordinator as his co-offensive coordinators. We were talking in Sports Rehab about that Facebook page, and I kind of feel like you just almost wipe last year off when it comes to Mac Jones. You start new with him.
Mac who? Mac Jones?
Jones.
I'm actually pretty up on Mac Jones going into this season, especially if Trevor Lawrence gets hurt, because Mac Jones has never had a defense like this, and he's never had Calvin Ridley, and now Jaguars just signed Gabe Davis to a deal. So, and along with Evan Ingram at tight end, and the Jaguars just signed Mitch Morse at
now,
center.
Is Calvin Ridley because I keep hearing about him at other places, is he a free agent or is he a trade thing?
I assume he's still going to be a Jaguar because it was a trade from the Falcons, and I don't think
he's a free agent. He's a free agent.
He is a free. I'm pretty sure the Jaguars are going to work a deal because Gabe Davis was acquired just to be a number 2. So I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Oh, they also signed Devin Duvernay, all-pro kickoff returner for Baltimore, played for the University of Texas.
I like his versatility.
Yeah, I'm about to say, not that they're going to try to make him a number 1 or anything, but yeah, he can do a couple of things. Yeah, apparently it sounds like the Jaguars have kind of told Ridley to go see if you can find a better deal. Maybe maybe they're thinking Gabe Davis is, which, boy, that's a big mistake. I like Gabe Davis as a number 2, but that dude.
MVS. He's MVS.
What's that mean?
Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He's going to get you 4 touchdowns 1 week, and then you won't see him again for 8 weeks.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing that but Bills fans said about him while they were there. And if you're going to try to make him, unless you're seeing somebody in the draft, again, we don't know. A lot of times with these teams, you're only seeing the first move. We're not seeing the total move yet, so we'll see. I felt that, and Ridley, though, was kind of like that last year. He'd have I know he had a big first week, and then he kind of disappeared. But then it felt like he was coming in more and more. Leonard Williams is close to signing with the Seahawks. Really good.
That's huge. Yeah. They needed that line. They tried to address it last year with Draymond Jones. That helped a little bit, but yeah, having Leonard Williams there, that'd be nice. That'd be really nice.
What did you think about Kirk Kirk. What do you think about Baker Mayfield's deal with Tampa? I like it.
I like it too. It's a winnable division. They just won the division. They won a
Is it
playoff
now?
game.
With Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta? I mean, I'm not joking. I feel like now Atlanta has taken 3 steps ahead of everybody. Because let's be honest, I think Atlanta wins the division last year with a decent quarterback.
Oh yeah, they have one. Like I said, they have a top 10 offensive line. They got a really good. They got 2 really good running backs. They have a really good receiver, really good tight end. They addressed their defensive issues in free agency, and they got really good. They got a ball hawk at safety, and Jesse Bates the third. So yeah, I really think the Falcons are a quarterback away. I think with Raheem Morris as head coach, he's gonna just leave the offense to the offensive coordinator, and I really think they're gonna at least get to 11, 12 wins.
Do you see a redemptive arc for Atlanta that kind of reminds me of the Texas Rangers in baseball, where they have one of the biggest first time they're finally there? And I know Texas's collapse was the second year of back-to-back World Series, but still finally there, collapse. Still, team's still good, but you know, you and I talked about this. I have a real big theory of when that stuff happens, you kind of just need to go ahead and clean out the locker room because that'll just never work. They've fallen all the way down. Now they've quietly rebuilt up, and everybody's saying, oh, they're going to be really solid next year. Sounds like the Rangers last year. Just wait a few years. Sounds like the Rangers last year. And then boom, the season happens. I can see that with, I'm telling you right now, I'm extremely high on everything Atlanta's doing right now.
You, me, and everybody, anyone that follows the NFL, they know.
I'm smart. No one else notices it.
They knew they were a quarterback away, and getting someone like Cousins, it's a 4-year deal. He'll be, I think, 36 going into the season. He'll probably finish his career in Atlanta if he rides out this contract. They can find a quarterback for the future within the next 4 years, hopefully. But yeah, he's a quarterback for now, and I think.
Do you even care about the quarterback for the future if you get?
No, you're just trying to get to a Super Bowl at this point. You have a Super Bowl ready team. You have a pretty solid coach that did a remarkable job with really no one except for Aaron Donald last year as a defensive coordinator for the Rams, and they turned that season around.
Really good point, dude. I know if you're a Dallas fan, you're going to look at that game and be like, yeah, were they really that good? They were. Again, give Dallas credit last year. They had ability where if they jumped on you by 10 points or more, that defense, you know, and you still had Stafford was banged up. You still, you know, don't look at that.
They didn't have their running back either.
I didn't have their running back either. You know, I don't know. I just love what Atlanta's doing. And you still got Ritter. Sit him behind Cousins. Maybe he learned some things. And let's say Cousins plays 4 years. If Ritter, maybe in 4 years, and look at Baker Mayfield. Now, to be fair, Baker Mayfield also had won a playoff game in Cleveland. I think Baker Mayfield, as much as being an OU quarterback, you know, give him a lot of crap. But if you really look at the things Baker Mayfield has gone through in his career, the dude is resilient. You know, I think the underdog label in college got overdone because, you know, the whole walk-on, and he was a walk-on because he specifically wanted to go to certain schools. He could have gone to many others. But I do think in the pros, I don't know how you don't root for Baker Mayfield. He's just that guy. Like, he's just fun to watch, whether he's not quite Jameis Winston blow up, burn down fun to watch, but he's just fun to watch because he's gritty. And I know that gets thrown around a lot, but for me, he legitimately is gritty.
Hey, you and I went to the NFL draft in 2018. Yep. It was here in Arlington, and the crowd just booed the pick. He was the number 1 overall pick. The crowd booed it.
Must have a bunch of UT fans.
Yeah, that might have played a small bit into that. But yeah, I really like Baker staying with the Buccaneers. I really like what they're doing there. I'm interested to seeing what they do post Dave Canales. I'm kind of curious to see what Dave Canales does in his first year as Panthers head coach. So yeah, 2024 will be interesting. Speaking of the Panthers, they actually signed a really good guard in Robert Hunt.
Yeah,
they might have overpaid for him, but I mean, I think the market for guards it's like supply demand. You know, economics 101.
Well, if you're the Panthers, you're going to have to oversign for some people.
5 years, 5 years, $100 million, 63 guaranteed. That is a lot, but he might be worth it for them. So
I'm trying to refresh now to see what else anything
well, while
new.
you're doing that, I'll just go over some of the other big
Okay.
ones. Christian Wilkins, one of the two tackles that I wanted to come to Dallas. He signed with the Raiders, 4 years, 110 million. To me, that's about $20 million over. But they need someone to help Max Crosby. They drafted Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech last season to help, but he had some injury issues, and he's a rookie, so it takes about a year. So maybe next year Wilson will, pick it up a notch, and then having Wilkins up the middle to pair with Max Crosby. I think the Raiders might have a formidable front going into this season. I still think it's overpaid until I'm proven wrong. Chris Jones, I think he's going to end his career with the Chiefs. 5 years, $95 million, all of it guaranteed.
I was shocked by that. I was absolutely shocked by that because it felt like the Chiefs over the last couple of years have been doing value deals and wasn't this deal available last year to him? Why did you not? Now you can make the case that they played it right. They got him halfway through the season. He still performed great, was amazing in the playoffs. But I like it for him. This is a deal that sometimes you are willing to pay people more for what they did in the past, and they can still be good in the future. I don't think Chris Jones is going anywhere, but I think it also allows Chris Jones to, I don't want to say take off half of the regular season, but I think the Chiefs understand when they need Chris Jones to be Chris Jones. And I think that means week 1 through 10, you might get 3 or 4 sacks, but let's look at what he does from week 10 through the Super Bowl, where he'll have like 14 sacks. And so I like the deal. I like Chris Jones. That's one I'd love to have ended up in Dallas. I think he's a special player.
This season reminded me of Emmett in '93. He didn't play the first game because he was still under contract dispute. They lose at home to Detroit, 21-20. The very next day, they sign him to a 1-year deal, and he comes in there and they win the Super Bowl. Kelsey was also out that game too, but still.
Screw Kelsey.
Chris Jones, he has the value. He's one of the guys that I wish he was my number one option for Dallas. I wish Dallas could have had a chance to even entertain that.
So hang on. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but you bring it up, and we've been drinking, so I want to get this in before we get off on thing. What do you see Dallas doing? We both knew they weren't going to sign no $200 million deals. I don't care if he said they're all in or not. And like I said to you earlier, and I knew you knew it, but he basically immediately backed off that and was like, okay, hang on. And this is what I mean when I say all in. Basically, what he is saying is everybody has a 1-year deal that matters, and we're going to see what happens after. I still feel like there might be a world where Dak Prescott is not given an extension and he's playing on a 1-year, $50 million deal. And let me see what y'all do before I go forward with that.
I think Dallas at this point are going to have to address some of their defensive issues. Well, their line issues in the draft. I think they're going to attack the draft with that because I don't see anyone right now that's worth of a high free agent salary to come to Dallas. But there's some pretty solid college players that probably could come to Dallas. Linebacker, I really do want Bobby Wagner to come to Dallas. He's the Seahawks linebacker right now.
A lot of people thought he was going to come 2 years ago when he ended up with the Rams.
Yeah, and I want him to pair with Demarion Overshown and DeMonte Clark. I think those guys are like 23, 24 years old. Overshown was injured. He's going to come back. I think that veteran leadership will be really good for our linebacking core going forard. And now
you don't feel that he's he won't fit in with Zimmer. I mean, I get Bobby Wagner under Dan Quinn, but Wagner and Zimmer don't have any kind of connection. So I don't know if I don't know. I don't know what Zimmer's looking for, to be honest with you.
Eric Kendricks?
Huh?
Eric Kendricks?
Former Viking.
Former Zimmer disciple.
That's a good fit, actually.
Because you only need them for a year or two because you want to groom the future. Clark and Overshown are the future. The nickel defense is the new 4-3-3-4. That's just going to be the new standard coverage until things change. You got your 2 linebackers, your young linebackers for the future. Just get them trained up with a very solid, still effective veteran there. And LVE is probably going to have to retire or take the year off. Most likely retire. So
Anthony Barr maybe back in Dallas?
Maybe, if that's what Zimmer wants.
I mean, he wasn't here last year, but the year before he started slow. But I think a lot of that's just you're in a new system. But Anthony Barr made some good plays from about week 7 on.
Yeah.
I don't know. For the first time in a couple of years, we don't really know what Dallas's thought process is on defense. We all know they need linebacker. And to be honest with you, I think at the end of the day, why Dallas maybe didn't fight as hard for Dan Quinn this year as maybe as they would have last year is, and I know this is going to blow some people's minds because they're going to be like, well, Jerry Jones, yes, decides all the things. But if you ever really watch anybody that's actually a beat writer with the Cowboys and have inside knowledge, they say the perception that Jerry Jones does what he wants is actually 100% false. It's the exact opposite. He leans way a lot on what coaches tell him, sometimes maybe too much. And I think there is a world last year where LVE goes down and Dallas Jones goes to Quinn and says, okay, we've got some really good linebackers that just hit the market, like Leonard from the Colts and all. And Quinn's like, no, we're good. We're going to run with this. And did you see what Jordan Love said on Micah Parsons' podcast about that game?
No.
He said they watched the film and said, we're just going to run the ball. We're going to run the ball and we're going to win. And Micah Parsons,
that's what you and I have been saying about this Cowboys defense all.
We tried to warn everybody last year. We said this last year. Like, hey, look, it's great when they get up 14-0. That is awesome. That defense, they're gonna pin their ears back. They're gonna meet at the quarterback. It's gonna be fun. Blah blah blah. But what happens when they're not up 14-0? And that's why I told you in the moment. As soon as Green Bay won that coin toss and took the ball, I was like, I don't feel good about this. Because you would think if you're in the playoffs and you're playing a team that's supposed to be as great defensively as Dallas, you're not wanting the ball first. You're wanting to, let's set the tone. Let's play defense. Let's be safe. No, they were like, we want the ball, because I think they knew immediately that, hey, we're just going to run the ball. We're just going to run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. And that's why Mike Zimmer is in as your defensive coordinator. Not only because he knows Jerry Jones, and it's because one thing you always can say about Mike Zimmer's defense, they stop the run.
Yep. Yeah. Every loss the Cowboys had in 2023, the Arizona Cardinals, San Francisco 49ers, Buffalo Bills, they knew exactly what they were doing by running Cook over and over. Dolphins. What was the other loss in that season? I already said Cardinals. Anyway, all the losses in 2023.
Cardinals, Eagles, San Francisco.
Eagles. Thank you, DeAndre Swift.
DeAndre Swift, like his one of 3 games that he. Yeah. Speaking of, man, I really wish that's another guy. As soon as you said he went to the Bears, I can't pronounce. I said fuck. I was hoping he was a guy I thought might value fall to Dallas.
Yeah,
good on the Bears. But then you also look at the Bears and go, hey, dude, if y'all had just kept Montgomery, y'all were good. Yep. That's one of those that was a mistake. But look at what the Lions signed Montgomery for, was a value deal. And you can also make the case that Montgomery looks a lot better because he wasn't having to be the warhorse back for them. You've got 2, which again we go back to in today's NFL. You need 2 running backs. So why sign one for $30 million when you can sign 2 for $10 million each, and you're saving $10 million? And that's why, man, I would not. And I'm not saying that they even would want to, but if the Cowboys ended up with Aaron Jones and Dillon, I would not hate that. That feels really, really good as a Cowboy fan, because they've got to do something with the running back position.
That's exactly what I want from when I told you after the season. That's exactly, we need a thunder and lightning combo, and that's what they were, and that's what they still are. I mean, Aaron Jones is going to be hitting 30 this year, but he's still a lightning running back. If you need short yardage, A.J. Dillon's 250 pounds. And he goes forward. He don't go backward. So that I would be happy with that. Now we'll just see what happens, though.
Now the one thing you have to worry about with an Aaron Jones is he does seem to miss a few games. And that's and maybe that's just as we always say, that's just today's NFL is, just you're going to have guys miss a few games. Speaking of that, the NFL, kind of want to talk about this. The NFL's starting to talk 18 games again.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they're supposedly going to offer the NFLPA is if we have an 18-game season, nobody outside of maybe a quarterbacks, punters, and kickers can play all 18 games. You said that last offseason, one of the very first OutDrank The Coverage in studio shows we did. You said you thought that that would be the way going forward. Now, in saying that, what's going to happen when you sit 2 or 3 guys in the one game, you lose, and then that's the game, you end up missing the playoffs for that? How is that going to, but anyway, I think we're closer to 18 games. What are your thoughts on 18 games? I don't like 17, to be honest with you. I've gotten used to it. I don't really want 18 games. I love football, but damn, that's just too much.
I'm okay with it as long as you eliminate preseason football
completely.
I mean, that would suck because you have to get rid of the Hall of Fame game, which is kind of like our introduction.
Or do the Hall of Fame game. You can still do the Hall of Fame game.
It could be like a specialty game. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Well, why can't the Hall of Fame game be your week 1 Thursday night game? Holy crap!
Well, because teams want that home field advantage.
You're getting 18 games.
Unless it's the Browns and they get to play in their stadium, I think a lot of teams that play that week are going to be up in arms about it.
Why? They go to Mexico. They go to Europe.
But there's one team that's close by, like the Cardinals. They're close to Mexico, so they're the designated home team.
But there's nobody close to Europe.
Jaguars.
Well, he's trying. So I like the idea of a week 1 Hall of Fame game being. I still would love, and if you do an 18 game, you can do this. Why can't we have the Hall of Fame week 1, your Thursday night game, just simply be a rematch of the Super Bowl?
Yeah, because now you're not dependent on like the scheduling.
Yeah, just
you have that wild card game where you can just play whoever. So yeah.
I think that'd be fun. Make the Hall of Fame game still be a game. And in fact, I think that would be even more, that would bring more to the Hall of Fame game because it is a week 1 game. And I get what you're saying about, well, they want a home game. Well, again, they do that. They travel, there's neutral places in season. You just give the gate to the home team if you want. I don't know how you'd work that out. I don't think it's that big of a deal because teams are still going to be getting, and you're only talking 2 teams every year that it would be playing in that. So it's not like we're talking a whole league. I just think it would be fun if you just did the Super Bowl rematch as the Hall of Fame game.
So right now, the Hall of Fame ceremony is on a Saturday.
Yeah. What you could still do, make the game on Thursday.
And there's 2
Friday,
days left. Okay.
Yeah. You can still do
it. And it attracts other fans because, sometimes, I went 7 years ago.
Yes.
Kurt Warner went in. So there was a lot of Cardinal fans. There was a lot of Ram fans. LT went in, LaDainian Tomlinson. So a lot of Charger fans. Jerry Jones went in. Cowboys were practicing that week there. So there was Cowboy players off to the other side in their, workout clothes.
Yeah, they played the Hall of Fame game that year, didn't they?
Yeah. Tony Romo was there. We saw him walk right by me.
You sat in the lap of Tony Dorsett on the flight, right? Isn't that how you said it?
Yeah. So on the flight back, when I was getting my luggage and baggage claim, I saw Tony Dorsett. Funny enough, I also saw him at Discount Tire about 3 or 4 years ago. Him and his wife were going, I guess, to get new tires or whatever. And
I hope they weren't there for the coffee.
They were not there for the coffee.
So have you ever looked at Tony Dorsett when you saw him and said, hey, how did you only win 1 Super Bowl?
No, I did not.
I always loved Tony Dorsett. That was one of my favorites. Again, that's my age group, as we always wax nostalgic about football. Hey, go ahead.
What do you think of the Eagles going in a different direction by paying a lot of money to a running back?
How much did they end up paying, Jacob? Or who they signed?
So Eagles signed Saquon Barkley, 3 years, $37.75
$10 million a year. Didn't they sign DeAndre to about a $10 million a year contract as well?
It was like a 1 year. I don't know sure how much money, but the value last year for running backs was much lower. Right now, it's a lot. Even though there's a lot of running backs in the market.
10 of the year doesn't feel like a lot. In the world of what NFL other players are getting, where you're talking about, like, we just talked about Burns from the Giants as a pass rusher is getting what, $20 million a year.
There's a high market for it.
Yeah, I think 10 years is pretty good.
Can we go back to the Cowboys?
Yeah, of course.
It relates to Brian Burns. He's listed as an edge rusher.
Some really good, great move. The way your eyes lit up, but no,
I forgot about this because this is one of the earlier news stories.
Yeah,
Cowboys, they have initially tagged
Micah Parsons.
Or I think they were going to tag, or they have tagged Micah Parsons, but as a defensive end.
Not tagged. They've picked up his 5th-year option.
Oh, they picked up his 5th-year as a defensive end, not as an edge rusher.
Okay, so that's not the Cowboys. The NFL designates that. That's one of the big confusions when that happens. The Cowboys didn't decide, we're going to do DE, that's going to save us money. The NFL designates him by number of snaps. And let's be honest, unless something changes, Micah Parsons is a defensive end now.
Yeah.
Now, do you want him to stay at defensive end? I do.
I just feel like he was screwed over there.
I mean, Dallas is going to do right by him. You know that. Dallas, for all the talk about free agency, Dallas re-sign, and you can even make the case that sometimes they oversign, but Dallas does really good deals for their players. He is not going to hurt for money. He's going to be well paid. But I do think the question now with Zimmer and maybe a more traditional 4-3, and as you said earlier, we're all working with the 4-2-2s, but still, in theory, the 4-3s, do you see Zimmer moving Parsons back to more linebacker? I think if they do, that's a mistake. Not saying he wouldn't be amazing. And again, you and I have said for 2 years, Dallas needs to be better run, but you still got to have a pass rush. And he right now with and not that Dorrance was a big stud pass rush, but right now, Micah Parsons is the only pass rush Dallas really has because DeMarcus Lawrence is now a strong side, Tony Tolbert style defensive end. He'll get to the quarterback 7 to 10 times, but he's going to stop the run. I don't think you can move Micah Parsons back to traditional. And I will say this, be prepared. Dallas will be better sound-wise defensively, but they're not going to have as many sacks and they're not going to have as many turnovers. We've got to get used to that right now.
Well, I mean, as long as Dallas drafts Trevondre Sweat.
Man, if he falls, I'm telling you. By the way, we'll have a live draft show. You'll be in studio for that. I am so hoping that he falls because I know Dallas is going to need some offensive line out, especially losing their center. But man, if he is sitting there in the first round, that's a dude you plug in for the next 10 years at defensive tackle and just let him work.
He won all the awards in college at UT, and he had a fast 40-yard dash. He just seems like a big athletic guy that could really just plug in to a team that could really use him like Dallas. I really don't think the other 31 teams could really use him. I really think the only team that really would be suitable for him is the Dallas Cowboys. So, yeah, I would like for him to be a Cowboy. Xavier Worthy, 4.2140. I mean, if he wants to come to Dallas, we'll take him.
I'm not as high on Worthy. I like Worthy, but I would rather have Adonis Mitchell, to be honest with you. I think that's a guy that's going to. I mean, he already had a good college career, but I think he's going to explode in the NFL. Derek Del Rio, fan of the Packers, says that it hurt his heart that they released Aaron Jones. Yeah, but you got Josh Jacobs. I mean, to me, that's a win.
That's one of the best all-around backs in football.
Yeah, but we say that, but the Raiders, and I'm not saying that the Raiders makes the best decisions, but the Raiders spent 3 years trying to replace him because they said he didn't catch the ball out of the backfield enough. I want that, and that's awesome, but you can get a second guy to do all that work.
Exactly. And the thing is, they drafted a guy, or no, they traded for a guy or signed him in free agency just to do that. And I had his name in my head, but
Kenyon Drake,
and they got rid of him.
They even hinted that, hey, Drake might get more snaps than Jacobs a couple years ago. And remember, in preseason, Drake, and I like Kenyon Drake. I thought he was a very underrated
player. Too. Yeah.
But they were like, hey, this might be our guy. And then they quietly cut him in like week 6, and he ended up. because Jacobs was better. Because
Of course.
Jacobs is the type of running back that you go, hey, you know what? It's okay that we're not getting 70 catches out of the backfield from him because he's going to get us 1,700 yards rushing.
I haven't said that. I still like what the Raiders did so far, and this is the first week of free agency. I think official. So nothing's really official, I think, until Wednesday. I think Wednesday's official start. So all these contracts, they all this stuff can be negotiated. It's just nothing's going to be set in stone until Wednesday. But they're basically set in stone. Tony Pollard's going to the Titans. He's going to get his 3 years, $24 million.
What do you think about that move for the Titans?
Good for them. I mean,
is it?
They need another running back, but
they do. But I just feel like you've set your scheme to a Derrick Henry. It's kind of like the same issue that he's had with Dallas. You set your scheme and everything to what Derrick Henry did. I know you have a new coach, all that, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, man. I feel like I don't know. I like Pollard. I just don't think Pollard's a lead back.
Yeah, I don't think he is. I think he's a good compliment. I think he's a good pass protection running back. Like, I think he's really good at pass blocking, and he's good at pass catching, and he's good at being like a scat back, getting some yards there.
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, nice.
Sorry.
So I know. No, that was good. That was good.
I could have went with the other scat joke, so we'll just be happy that I went with Scooby-Doo.
I don't want to get demonetized again.
Oh, we already demonetized. Speaking of, okay, so we started a new series, Bad Movies and a Drink. Our first one. It's a really fun episode. You'll probably see it in May, because it got copyright claimed immediately. Like, as it's being processed and put up on YouTube, it was already copyright claimed. Now, if you don't understand the YouTube process, basically they have a really crappy way that how they do copyright claim. Anybody can claim anything, and you have to then take it down and prove your side. You have two options. You can either do the 30-day, which is what we had to do, or the 7-day. Now, the problem with the 7-day is if they decide you aren't right, they then give you a copyright strike. Yeah. If your channel gets 3 copyright strikes within a certain time frame, YouTube can just delete you. So it's kind of unfair how they do that, because they force you to take the long route. But we did. It's been we are disputing it. It'll probably be end of April before we actually get to see it. But it's a really fun episode.
That's good. Yeah.
And that's a new series for us, Bad Movies and a Drink. But anyway, I'm trying to refresh. Jordan Hicks goes to the Browns. Good deal.
Who? Jordan Hicks? Oh, nice. He's really good. He was a really solid linebacker.
Yeah, with the Eagles last year, with the Vikings, former UT linebacker. He signs 2-year, $8 million deal.
Nice.
Here we go. Hang on. This is what I love. Luke Combs, country singer, calls out his team, the Panthers. What are we doing? No first-round pick for McCaffrey a few years back, and now none for Burns. Really good point. Yeah, but also, really good point. It shows you where the market is, dude. To trade, get a first-round pick is really, really hard in today's NFL.
So the actual trade was, Brian Burns, edge rusher, goes from the Panthers to the Giants. Brian Burns and a 2024 fifth go to the Giants, and the Giants send a 2024 second, a 2024 fifth, and a 2025 fifth to the Panthers. So yeah, for the amount of money Brian Burns got, I would figure that the Panthers would have got more out of this.
At least another second.
And
2 2s and a 5 instead of 1 2 and a 2 5s.
It seemed like it was more of a desperate trade, which is kind of weird to me, because Brian Burns.
That's a good point, because they had tagged him at $24 million.
Yeah.
If they'd have kept him, they'd have paid him $24 million for 1 year. For a guy that, for all the talk about him being overpaid now, he's a really good edge rusher.
He really is.
Yeah. And I mean, I know if you're the Panthers, you're on this whole, hey, we're tearing down, but usually you still need a couple of veteran, and it's not even like he's that old, but veteran style players.
The problem is when they're trailing every game, his stats are not going to reflect his actual performance or his actual worth. So yeah,
great example, that Dallas game. Yeah. Where they were able to get up and they literally took Burns out of the game just because. That's a good point.
I told you I wasn't going to just watch Red Zone that day because I knew what the score was going to be.
Yep.
I knew it would be close in the first half because Panthers have a really good defense. And in the second half, Cowboys would impose their will, a.k.a. they would keep running, and then the Panthers would make the mistake. Deron Bland, pick six, and all she wrote. So, yeah, I'm looking at everything else. I'm really happy as of today. I'm really happy with what the Raiders did. I'm really happy with what the Packers did. They signed Giant safety Xavier McKinney to a big deal. They signed Josh Jacobs. The Rams, they signed Jonah Jackson away from the Lions, who have one of the top 3 offensive line in football, to shore up their guard position. And the Rams also got Colby Parkinson from the Seahawks. So, yeah, I mean, those are 2 teams I'm really impressed with. Even though the Commanders had a lot of additions, I'm really impressed with those 2 teams specifically.
It kind of feels like, and again, everything has to hit.
Yeah.
But it kind of feels like that the Lions atop the North might be a 1-year deal, because I don't know. This is not, and again, they're a great team, but man, it just feels like the Packers.
Yeah.
Ooh. Now you need Jordan Love to take that next step, not just be hey, he had a great year, because that happens. And you could say the same thing about the Lions in a lot of respects. A lot of things broke right for them. And yet, and this is why when you get to the NFC title game and you're up multiple scores on the road,
Yeah.
you've got to win those, because there's no guarantee. The Lions, honestly, everybody think about this. If the Lions next year finish 6-11, would you be shocked? No. That's football. Jared Goff regresses or he gets hurt. The defense isn't who was struggling last year. And I know everybody loves Aaron Glenn, but I mean, at some point that defense has got to be better, because at the end of the day, that's kind of what lost you that game against San Francisco. You had a 2-score lead. You just need to make a couple stops, and you couldn't make them. And so you look at the Packers, and I don't know, man, they feel more, and maybe this is just history of the 2 teams over the last 30 years, and that's not fair to the Lions, but I'm just being honest. It just feels like the Packers next year are better built.
Now, I will say that the Lions have addressed some of their defensive issues with the trade today. So the Buccaneers traded Carlton Davis III.
You sent me that. Sorry, I missed that. Great move for the Lions. And I'm a little pissed because I was hoping they would have, because he was that type of guy that if he gets cut, he's old enough that he's not going to ask for a ton of money. It felt like he'd have been, again, I know we're going to say this about a lot of guys. He legitimately felt like he would have been a really good fit in Dallas.
Yeah, he's a really good cover corner. Take some chances, but is really good. Kind of like Trayvon Diggs, who'll be back next. Yeah, who'll be back next season for the Cowboys, along with Deron Bland, along with Stephon Gilmore.
I hope he re-signs with Dallas. I really do. I liked him in Dallas.
Now Jordan Lewis, I'm not sure if he'll be a return. I'd like for him to return. But
dude, he came on strong at the end, last 7 games. That's the guy that we thought we were getting 3 years ago.
And I thought coming out of the draft, so him and Chidobe Awuzie were both guys that came out of Colorado.
By the way,
outstanding cornerbacks. They came to Dallas. Awuzie eventually went to the Bengals. Had a great career with Dallas. Went to the Bengals. Had a great career there. Went to the Super Bowl, and then he just left the Bengals recently. So, yeah. Right now, the Cowboys have a pretty good, secondary depth at cornerback specifically. Safety is still pretty solid, but not like.
You have to wonder
Xavier McKinney good, but
yeah, I mean, I know. I think Curse is free. Does he go with Quinn? You do have to worry about that, because I mean, whether we can, I know it feels like sour grapes after we're kind of not knocking Quinn, but let's be honest, Quinn did a lot of great things here in Dallas too. I'm not trying to bury that, and you're seeing that he was very well loved. Hell, Micah Parsons even said, man, when he leaves, that's going to be really, really tough. But let's be honest, that's also Micah Parsons' first coach in the NFL. You're going to get that. You're either going to get a guy that you love or a guy that you hate, and he loved him. I think he'll be fine with Zimmer. I think Zimmer is going to toughen up Parsons. Again, I have no problem with Parsons does on his podcast. I'm not trying to say that that's a bad thing, but I do think that there's something to be said about the whole, like, you just play, just go out and play. You don't have to. Oh, yeah. You don't have to make a comment on everything. And I think Zimmer is very much the whole loose lip, sink ships type of deal that maybe Quinn wasn't. But anyway, I think you're going to have to worry about that. We've already seen with Dorrance Armstrong. And I think Dallas is going to miss Armstrong. I liked Armstrong as your third rusher guy.
So with the Raiders getting Gardner Minshew on a 2-year deal, $25
they're starting quarterback for the next 2 years.
What happens with Justin Fields? Justin Fields can't go to Atlanta because they got Cousins. And he can't go to Pittsburgh because they got Russell Wilson. And he can't go to brain fart. Raiders because they got Gardner Minshew. So where does Justin Fields go? And what do the Bears do?
Okay, hang on. I don't know if I don't know what the Raiders are thinking, but I don't think Gardner Minshew makes you think, okay, we can't get Fields. I still don't think the Bears are 100% on Caleb. I'm taking Caleb Williams yet. I don't think that that's a 100% thing. But I have been reading that there's a real good possibility that Justin Fields has to be a backup for to go somewhere else. He has to, Mac Jones type where you go back up. Now,
yeah.
I'm getting close to the camera.
You know why I'm thinking though? Because go ahead.
Getting close to the camera so you can hear me.
All right.
Justin Fields to Dallas.
Oh, why? For what?
Why not? You've got Dak Prescott now in 1-year deal.
At $59 million. Who's going to take that on?
Dallas
will take that on.
Yeah, you've got Justin Fields who will be coming off of the 5th-year option. If you're not happy with what Dak Prescott does this year, you have a guy in Justin Fields that takes over in 2025, and he's your
talking about this season.
Well, no, I'm thinking Justin Fields has to go back up somewhere. If the Bears decide, hell, maybe the Bears keep him for that 5th. You've got him on a 5th-year rookie deal anyway.
Might as well keep him.
If you draft Caleb Williams, just keep Fields and then let him go next year. But I'm just saying, if you're, if Dallas is willing to trade a 4th round for Trey Lance, who was completely unproven, and Justin Fields ain't going to take more than a 3rd round. You're not going to get a 1st round if you're the Bears for Justin Fields. You're maybe not even going to get a 2nd round for Justin Fields.
So if I was the Bears GM, Ryan Poles, I would go ahead and just pick a defensive lineman with that number 1 pick, and I would probably pick Devondre Sweat.
What about Marvin Harrison Jr.?
You need to address your offensive line and defensive line issues. He might be the better option, but if I have the option, I probably would shore up the line play because he needs help, whether it's protection for him or help on the defensive side. And I think Devondre Sweat would be a good option. If not him, Marvin Harrison Jr. at wide receiver would be a good. It's funny because he's a number 1, but him being a number 2 with DJ Moore on the other side, that makes the Bears very deadly. Because
yeah, I like the Bears. I still. If I'm the Bears, and I know you're going to have to sign him to a bigger deal technically than what you get with Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
And I want to say this. I think all this talk about Caleb Williams and some of the side stuff, I think that's getting very overrated. And I'm a guy that 6 months ago was telling you I think Caleb Williams is kind of overrated, but I'm also just getting tired of every quarterback. Every year the next quarterback's the guy that changes his position. And like I say, you see it, Trevor Lawrence. I mean, literally, Trevor Lawrence was told. We were told when Trevor Lawrence came to Clemson, and he won a national championship, so I'm not saying he was bad, but we were told that Trevor Lawrence was going to completely change how quarterbacks have played. That hasn't happened. And I don't think it's going to happen with Caleb Williams. But I think Caleb Williams is going to be a hell of a quarterback. I think Caleb Williams is going to be a top 5 quarterback. I think everything that people are knocking Caleb Williams about now, you're going to look back 10 years from now and realize that's a leader, because leaders buck the trend. Leaders don't do what everybody else does. But in saying that, if I am the Bears, trade back 5 spots, pick up another first round and probably a second or third, get Marvis and Harrison Jr., or as you say, get a defensive lineman, an offensive lineman, and go win 12 games. Folks, the NFC North is going to be freaking power packed next year. Minnesota looks like the only team now that might struggle, and that's simply because and that depends on what they do quarterback wise. If they make the right quarterback decision, it's not like Minnesota's a terrible team. I think we all realize now, if Kirk Cousins finishes out that year last year, I still think Minnesota catches Detroit at the end of the year.
Yeah, they were already on a roll. I think they would have won the division. I think Detroit would have been a very dangerous 5 seed or 6 seed. But, now I'm not sure what Minnesota's going to be dishing out in 2024. And they have Jefferson at wide receiver. Huh?
I think Minnesota is going to take a step back and start a rebuild. That's why you and I talked about earlier. Do you trade Jefferson?
Yeah, I was about to ask. Do you trade Jefferson?
If you're Minnesota, I guess it really does at this point. And it's not. It's okay to be this way. At this point, I think you just have to see what you do at quarterback. If you get a quarterback that, wow, Jimmy G to Minnesota doesn't sound too bad.
Or Dak to Minnesota
for Jefferson.
I mean, seriously, they need a quarterback. The Cowboys
this year.
I know the Cowboys will probably.
Are you out on Dak, Noe?
No, I'm never. I'm a Dakalite. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, it feels like you're kind of out on Dak, though.
I'm being objective. I'm
not about OutDrank The Coverage a little bit right now.
I'm also OutDrank The Coverage.
That's why we love this show.
So, I mean, that is a possibility. Like, I could see that offer being entertained by the front office for Minnesota and Dallas. I could see if you're thinking long term. Now, Dallas is in here now. Jerry Jones wants to have another Super Bowl before he dies.
That's a really good point. And I think that's the thing. But he's also, I think if it was just up to Jerry Jones, they would be all in this year. I'm talking about you're signing Jacobs, you're signing everybody, you're going, $5 over the cap. You don't give a care. You'll figure it out 2 years from down the road. And I wouldn't knock it if that's how they were doing it. I think it's Stephen Jones again, because Stephen Jones remembers what was happening when Dallas was signing the Derek Carrs of the world. And he was a Brandon Carrs of the world. What? Derek Carr? Brandon Carrs of the world. And he was a perfectly fine corner, but he never got close to living up to that $60 million deal, which now if you signed a cornerback for 5 years, $60 million, we're like, hell yeah, we got a great deal on it. Yeah.
Super Bowl, here we come.
Here we go. That's a great deal. But back in 2011, that was a terrible deal.
Yeah.
And to be fair, there's always that thing we forget about in that era. And that's the NFL royally screwing them and the then Redskins, now Commanders, of we have an uncapped year, but you better not sign anybody in this uncapped year because we're going to do stuff. And this is where I always feel like maybe the NFL does have some stuff on Jerry Jones, because I never understood why Jerry Jones didn't fight that, because that was really crappy. And I'm not just saying that as a Cowboy fan. I'm even saying that for the Washington. That was really crappy to literally say you broke a rule that we can't really institute as a rule because it's an uncapped year. But that really did hamstring. There's a reason why Dallas was 8 for so long. They were 1 or 2 guys away. But anyway, so I feel like if it was just up to Jerry Jones, it would be a true all-in, but Stephen Jones isn't going to allow that. And I don't think that's a bad thing either.
No, it's not a bad thing. It keeps you consistently in it. Keeps you consistently in it and competing. I want to look at the rest of this. Ravens, they keep Justin Madubuike 4 years, $98 million. Great deal.
Oh, 98 for 4, not bad. What's the guaranteed $40 million?
75.5. So almost all of it's guaranteed. Yeah.
So that's the one thing we're seeing, and it's so funny because I was on Sport Rehab. We were talking about the Baker Mayfield deal on that, and it was for 3 years. And somebody said it's a bad deal, and I said, well, it really isn't, because if you think about it, re-signing Mike Evans, and I know they traded Carlton Davis, but re-signing Mike Evans, you basically have a 3-year window. Yeah. So you're going to pay him a lot, but he's going to be off the books. I think we're finally seeing teams realizing it's stupid to do the 7 years. Just do 3 years, which is the actual going to be the deal anyway, and then they're off the books. So I kind of like that deal.
So the Eagles, they lost DeAndre Swift, but they got Saquon Barkley. They lost, if we're going to go back, the big retirements. So Fletcher Cox, defensive tackle, he retired. And the big one, Jason Kelsey, center, retired. Cornerstones of the Eagles from the 2010s. Probably both are going to be in the Hall of Fame. Jason Kelsey will be the first ballot Hall of Famer. Fletcher Cox eventually be a Hall of Famer. Multiple-time Pro Bowlers, multiple-time All-Pros. They were a big key part of the 2017 Super Bowl team. So a lot of changes going on in Philadelphia. Now, the other one I saw, Fletcher Cox goes, but a record setter comes in defensive end Bryce Huff. He comes over from the Jets.
So that's a done deal, or
it's a done deal. He gets 3 years, $51 million, and that is the largest deal for a non-quarterback UFA player. 3 years, $51 million.
Good player, but man, it's a lot.
That is a lot.
Okay, so first off, before even that happened, I would have said that of the two, Eagles are going to miss Jason Kelsey more. Fletcher Cox is fun. Even as a Cowboy fan, can't hate on him. He had some big moments at times, but you could kind of tell, like you saw when Dallas, they kind of started wearing him out. But I'm going to go ahead and call it now. Jason Kelsey is going to end up being back in Philadelphia at some point next year. He will not stay retired because I've seen the retirement speech enough. He's not ready. That's a very much Tom Brady in the moment. I'm tired. We didn't have a great season. We lost 2 rounds earlier than we should have. A lot of turmoil. I think there's a lot more turmoil in Philly than we realize. And I don't mean necessarily just drama outside, but I mean just inside, like schemes, coaching, and all that. I just see a world though where, let's say next year, Philadelphia in week 12 is sitting there tied with Dallas, centers, whoever they've drafted or picked up is not playing well. It would not shock me in any way that Jason Kelsey's back in the NFL.
Well, it really helped Landon Dickinson because the Eagles kept him at 4 years, $87.5 million, about $50 million guaranteed.
Jesus Christ, dude. They are – I don't understand. And, again, I know you can say, well, that's what you got to do. You got to go in. You got to go all in. But, I mean, you've got a quarterback. What is Hurts in, year 4?
Yeah, he was drafted in 2020.
Right,
He's going into year 5.
So he'll get was he a first rounder?
No, he was a second rounder.
So he
even better.
He won't get a 5th year, but he won't get a 5th year option.
So but they gave him a fat contract last season.
Oh, that's right. See, that's my point. Oh, you're right. Yeah. You're right. So again, I don't know, man. Like you're going all in at weird positions with Philadelphia right now. Does that make sense?
You understand the importance of keeping your biggest asset and Hurts protected.
But is that? I guess again, is that going to be protecting though? Is that your guy?
Landon Dickinson is one of the best guards in football. So keeping him and Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson has 1 or 2 years left, but they still have 3 out of the 5 guys they had 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Samula went to the Steelers. Kelsey retired. So, I mean, they still have 3 of those guys left. That's still better than, 90% of the NFL right now. Those are 3 really, really good players, but missing Kelsey is gonna be huge, and it just increases Landon Dickinson's demand.
I've always said this. I say always. I've said it for the year that the biggest mistake Dallas and Philadelphia is going to make is they're going to look back at this past year, and realize that this was their best chance because it was. You said it all year. There's 3 teams.
Yeah.
And I know the Lions added themselves, and you can say the Packers added themselves as well. By the way, hello to Stacy Sloan Caskey, mother of Ethan Sloan, former Gunter great, now playing football at Central Missouri. You can't see the banner, but it's just past the Texas helmet, just past there. She's listening in. But yeah, I think Dallas and Philly are going to look back and realize, man, this was 2023 was the year you had your easiest path. And I think San Francisco might look at that as well. And let's kind of talk about that. We'll finish up the football stuff right now because we're going to bring in our baseball guy in the show, a little bit of Ranger and AL West talk.
Oh, cool.
I think San Francisco takes a step back this year. I think it's the same thing I talk about when you talk about like the Rangers in 2011, talk about any teams that had collapses or multiple years where they couldn't quite win it. At some point that becomes an issue. And I think we're starting to see that with San Francisco now.
Teams that go far or make it to the Super Bowl, there's always a regression, whether it's free agency or just fatigue. These postseason games are very long and taxing on players and their health. That is always a factor. And then at this point, Kyle Shanahan, he's been here before. He's been here 2 times as a head coach. He's been here once as an offensive coordinator. 0 for 3. And what? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think what you're about to say is what I'm about to say is all 3 of those situations, the finger could be pointing at him as far as the offensive play calling goes.
Okay, I don't blame him for the Falcons because you have a head coach. That's the head coach's job. It's like we go back to the old, 1992 NFC title game, and North Turner famously says to Jimmy Johnson, "What do you want to do here? You want to run? You want to pass? You want to kill the clock?" And Jimmy says, "I want to score." Yeah. Okay, I don't blame Shanahan for that. I know he was the offensive coordinator, and I know Quinn's more of a defensive guy, but at some point as the head coach, Quinn, you go, hey, stop it. Yeah. And to be fair, the Falcons just couldn't run the ball in the second half. This isn't like 2007 Giants Cowboys NFC playoff where in the first half, the Cowboys just ran all day on the Giants, and then in the second half just inexplicably stopped. Mm-hmm. This wasn't that way. The Falcons, if I remember, I read they legitimately tried. Now you could even say they got too consistent in every first down they were running, and then it wouldn't work. So, but the two San Franciscos, yeah, that's on Kyle Shanahan, and I think Kyle Shanahan's a great coach. I have said I think he is revitalizing what NFL offenses do and how you decide who a running back and a wide receiver is. Hell, they tried to make Deebo Samuel officially a running back to pay him, and they realized they couldn't. Man. But yeah, at some point you got to be like, dude, you've had double-digit leads against the Kansas City Chiefs, not once, not twice, and you've lost the game.
Yeah.
MVS was catching big catches in that game. That right there. Well, first off, that's just when you go, okay, God hates me. Like, we literally watched him on the Monday night against the Eagles drop. I thought at the time would go down as one of the worst drops in the history of the NFL.
It was pretty bad.
Then not that the throw to him in the Super Bowl was super tough or anything, but at least he redeems himself. But yeah, I think the NFC all of a sudden with the Lions, it feels like they're actually there. I think the Bucs are still competitive. I think Green Bay and Atlanta, we've already talked about Atlanta. I think the NFC all of a sudden next year, I think Dallas. Right now, my early take is Dallas will make the playoffs. I even think Dallas might actually finally break the back-to-back curse with the whole division, but I don't think Dallas wins more than 11 games next year. In fact, I could see Dallas being 10-7.
Or the Commanders winning the division.
Yeah, I don't like the deals. I think they're doing the classic overpaying to get people here. They're overpaying a lot of really solid players, but Dorrance Armstrong at $4 million a year is a lot different than Dorrance Armstrong at $14 million a year. You're asking for more sacks. You're asking for more production. And I don't trust Dan Quinn's defense when it comes down to it.
Oh, I don't either. I've seen it.
And for people being like, oh, you're just, dude, we were saying this in 2021.
Yeah.
Like, I loved watching the feasting they did when they were ahead. But the issue is you knew all the way back in 2021, if a team had 2 minutes and 3 timeouts, they probably were about to drive down the field on Dallas and make it look really, really easy.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to talk another sport?
Sure.
Let's talk a little baseball. We're going to bring in our Ranger expert, Ryan Fox, new to OutDrank The Coverage Happy Hour. I would ask you, Ryan, how are you doing and what are you drinking? But I'm pretty sure you just tell us you're drinking 2% milk and taking all your vitamins. And look at that. Oh, my God, he's got a course. Ryan Fox has a course. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, sir. How about yourself?
Doing well. So what are your early thoughts of NFL free agency?
It's pretty wild. A lot of moves have been made, and I know y'all were talking earlier about the Cowboys. It might be an overreaction to say that, oh, they haven't done anything. You look at the NFL free agency tracker on NFL.com, you go through all the moves every team has made. The Cowboys are the only team that's blank underneath their logo. So
are you – I mean – I will say this, in turn, no AI are really big on like you don't want to overextend yourself. And a lot of these guys that they're signing, all these NFL teams are signing in 2 years will be June 1 cuts. But are you saying you're wanting to see more?
I'd like to see at least something, especially with some of the players kind of following Dan Quinn over to Washington. You'd like to see them at least take something. They're going to have to find an answer at running back with Pollard going to Tennessee. And who knows, Derrick Henry has been there in the talks as well as possibly coming to Dallas. I don't know what the real possibility of that happening is, but kind of a pseudo trade happening there would be something I'd like to see. It's been a while since the early Zeke days in 2016 through 2018, where the Cowboys have really had a dominant force in the backfield that's able to get the tough extra yards, and get yards beyond first contact.
Well, we were talking, Aaron Jones feels like a really good fit, him being somebody that played under Mike McCarthy. I still think he has miles on his legs. He wouldn't be as expensive as somebody. I don't know what Derrick Henry's the weird, like, where will his value be? Because we keep talking that running back value is less. Mm-hmm. Seems like everybody's signing at about $10 million. So if everybody's at $10 million, wouldn't Derrick be about a $12 or $15 million a year a guy?
Yeah, I could see that for sure. His numbers have kind of dwindled over the past 2 seasons. But then again, you look at Tennessee, their offense has really kind of been broken, and they really haven't had – I don't know where their offensive line ranks, but I would guess it's in the bottom half of, offensive lines across the league. And so they probably hasn't had much to work with. And you'd think it'd be the opposite with where they've been at quarterback since they brought him into the league, that they, carry the ball with him more, which they probably do, but just with the weapons that are around him, he probably just hasn't put up the numbers in the last 2 seasons that you would expect. I think he's one of those guys that a fresh start, maybe a new environment would do him some good. And again, I think the Cowboys, their offensive line historically has been good, but they're taking some hits losing Biotish. And then, of course, you look at Tyron Smith, he's never always healthy. I don't think Tyler Smith has fully grown into what they've expected yet. So, you never know. But I think the new environment at least would do him some good. And I think he's still enough of a weapon and a name where I think he'd be worth $10 million a year.
Yeah. All right. So let's switch over. We're going to talk a little Ranger baseball. Baseball season is coming up here quicker than you realize. Mm-hmm. I get to say something that I never thought I would get to say, but let's talk about the defending World Series Texas Rangers. You and I, Ryan, we were talking last week. We had a little business meeting. We were kind of talking off the air about, like, I felt Seattle might be the surprise team of the AL. Not that they'd be a surprise. They made the playoffs 2 years ago. Last year, went into the last week with a chance to make playoffs. I've amended that. I didn't realize the Mariners had lost so much and really haven't really gained a lot. But what are your opinions on the AL West in 2024?
Yeah, let's start with the Mariners. I think it'll be first off, I think it'll be a three-way race. I think the Rangers, Mariners, and Astros all have an extremely good chance to take the AL West this year. Yeah. Then you take the bottom two with the Angels, especially losing Ohtani.
I think the Angels, and this is nothing against Ohtani, but maybe I'm just that much of a believer in Ron Washington. I think the Angels are the surprise team of the AL. Not necessarily that they make the playoffs, but I think you add them at least at the end of the year, they're going to be there in the playoff race.
They'll have to have some, players that have kind of been, day to day, just kind of not star players, kind of step up. You have guys like Mike Trout, but how many games is he going to give you? He's been so injured the last few years. And then the A's, there's not much to say about them. I think, with that's just a whole mess in and of itself. And that's another thing that Terry and I talked about. Whenever the Oakland A's post the renderings for their new stadium, that was all artificial intelligence, buddy.
Everybody keeps talking about the Sydney Opera House, and they're 100%
that's
correct.
what I said.
But nobody is talking about there's one level of stands. That means there's that's a 12. And I know Texas went smaller with the new stadium. I think it's 50,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're talking about, if you looked at that stadium, if that's what they built, we're talking about the A's in Las Vegas having sellouts at 12,000 to 13,000. It's obviously fake. And I honestly, I'm starting to realize, I don't know if the A's to Las Vegas is going to actually happen.
Really? Well,
I mean, you're getting the same pushback in Las Vegas. Yeah. A lot of people are saying, hey, we've already built a stadium for the Golden Knights. We've already built a stadium for the Raiders. We wanted those. I don't know. That rendering just, and then the architect company came out the other day trying to explain all their artistic versions. And somebody on Twitter said, well, explain your artistic version of having 12 people at the game. I think the A's are going to be worse than they were last year, and they were freaking terrible last year.
Yeah, they were bad. I don't think it'd be anywhere near of a stretch to say that they'll have the worst record, not just in the American League, but probably all of Major League Baseball. But again, to that horse race in the top three, we did talk about the Mariners in our meeting last week, but you look at the numbers collectively as a pitching staff through all spring training, the Mariners have the worst ERA in the entire league. I think they had like a 6.48 ERA, both with starters and relievers so far through spring. And, they haven't made that many pickups. They picked up Ryan Stanek. He was that relief pitcher for the Astros last year who gave up that grand slam in Houston to Adolis Garcia in Game 6. But then again, I mean, he's got a good fastball, but that's about it. He had a sub-5 ERA throughout most of the season last year for Houston. So how much of a pickup is that? I mean, they're going to be good offensively. They have guys like Julio Rodriguez, Cal Raleigh, Jared Kelenic, guys like that who are really good offensively, but the defense and the pitching for them is going to be the big question. And with the Astros, I think they made a solid pickup in the rotation with Josh Hader. Or he's a relief pitcher, but I think the one thing that the Astros were missing in the pitching staff was a true closer. And I think Josh Hader has the potential to bring that to that Houston lineup. And the Rangers, I'm not sure if I believe the Rangers take a step back. It depends on with the pitching. I think they're going to sit out right at where they were last year, maybe somewhere between 88 and 92 wins. I think that's where they're going to sit. But then again, depending on how good the pitching is or how lackluster it could be, you never know with the Rangers. Like historically, the pitching has not been good. It could falter or do better. And the biggest question for that will be halfway through the season with Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom potentially coming back. And even when they come back, how long will they still stay healthy if they can stay healthy?
What do you think about that, Noe?
Yeah, I think Scherzer and deGrom, I wouldn't even think about them contributing this year.
Especially deGrom.
Given their age, agreed. Given their age and when they're potentially going to come back, I wouldn't even think about them this year. I wouldn't even think about repeating as champions. 88 to 90 wins sounds really good. Mm-hmm. I think that's some more on the upper echelon of what I think the Rangers will do this year, this season. As a Ranger fan, I really don't care. I think about them as Maverick fan, like as a Maverick fan like I am. They can win the championship, and I don't care what they do for the rest of my lifetime.
Yeah, I'm not that I mean,
I really thought that. Again, we said this on the show. I really thought the Cowboys were going to win another Super Bowl before the Rangers ever won a World Series.
I've said this to both of y'all. 2011 broke me.
It broke me too.
I mean, I as somebody who baseball was legitimately 1A to football or 1B to football, however you want to look at it. I've always been a guy of seasons. That's why I don't like football in the spring. I will look at the XFL, but I ain't hanging no Dallas Renegade or Arlington Renegade championship banners. I don't really care. But 2011 broke me because the Astros were never supposed to be good. I mean, the Rangers were never supposed to be good. They were supposed to be fun. And so when they actually got good and they get there and then they completely lose the way they do, and then they just it just 2013, 2014, then 2015, you go, okay, they're the number one seed, maybe now. Oh, fart you, Jose Batista. So last year I was, and we always say it jokingly, I was Randy Quaid, Major League 2. You know this, Noe. You'd be like, hey, the Rangers are 110. I'm like, they're gonna shit it away. Just watch. So
you know the bad part about it is what they gave us faith up until 2016, and they finally got the best record in the AL for the first time ever, and then they got swept by the Blue Jays.
And just a terrible. Oh yeah, I forgot about 2016 too. Yeah. That felt like they were going through the motions. And that's my point of why we always talked about, like, if you lose, I don't care what sport you are, if you lose like that, I think it's just better to clean out the start. And John Daniels even said that a few years later, was like, you don't realize the overhang of something like that until it happens to you, and you just. Even though the guys are great guys and the players are great players, it just changes you as a franchise. And so, last year, it's that redemptive arc. I don't care if they win this year, but I also don't want them back to, and I don't think they're going to be, I don't want them back to 60 wins or anything like that either. I want them to be at least competitive, because it felt like last year was 2 years early. And that's a good thing, because it legitimately, when you look at just offensively this roster, this team's going to rake. This team's going to score a lot of runs. Yeah. And that's why I think they're going to be still in contention, and they're still going to have 88 to 90 wins. I don't think you see DeGrom till 2025. That's Tommy John. It's never a year. It's 18 months almost to the day.
And his age.
And the fact he can't pitch more than one game anyway. But I still think with the staff and the bullpen additions, I think that they can at least scuffle to the All-Star break. But you're going to have to make some trades. At some point, it's going to be time to, okay, we're all in. Let's go get a Jordan Montgomery. And by the way, I'm fine with him not signing Montgomery at $100 million. I love Montgomery. But, dude, he is getting so overvalued by 8 games. And if you really go look at the games, he pitched well. But it wasn't like he was dealing like Cliff Lee was the first World Series run for the Rangers.
Still available.
Yeah. Speaking of that, let's talk about that. Has Scott Boras finally overvalued? I mean, you look at Jordan Montgomery, you look at Snell. By the way, if I had to choose, I would rather the Rangers get Blake Snell than Jordan Montgomery. But has Boras finally maybe overvalued his guys, or is this collusion again? I mean, it is weird that Boras usually gets his guys signed. It is weird that so many of them are Boras guys this year. What are your thoughts on that?
Go ahead, Ryan.
Oh well, yeah, it's a crazy deal, man. With the Rangers especially not signing Montgomery, I agree with you. I think it's a good thing, because everyone, you see it all over social media, saying, "Don't care, sign Montgomery. Don't care, sign Montgomery." But yeah, I think a 9-figure salary for him would be too much. Despite I think he pitched really good in the playoff run last year. He was a cog, especially and the fact that we picked him up halfway. His numbers at St. Louis and his numbers with Texas were like almost mirrored.
Night and day. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And he did a phenomenal job. But yeah, I don't think he's worth the 9-figure salary projections that a lot of experts have him at. But yeah, I think Blake Snell would be a great addition. I'm surprised no one's gotten Blake Snell yet.
I am too. By the way, intern Nelly, breaking news. I don't know why this makes me laugh so much. Dak Prescott files a lawsuit in which he accuses a woman and her attorney of attempting to extort him for $100 million. If you're going to go for that bag, go all the way in. I would claim though, if you sue him for $2 million, you probably get the attorney telling him, dude, just pay some money and be fine. I haven't clicked the link, but anyway, I just want to bring that up. Yeah, Blake Snell to me, I know he's asking for a lot, but he feels like a guy that if you ask for a lot, you're going to get out of him. What are y'all's thoughts on Trevor Bauer?
I wanted to bring that up too because he pitched really well in Japan last year. He went 10-4.
Japan minor league. Let's make sure we understand that. Okay. We're not talking about the league that Otani or Ichiro came from. We're talking about basically a AAA.
Okay. Well, still, he went 10-4 with a sub-3 ERA, and I think the main thing that we need to talk about here is he's willing to play for the league minimum. So I think if you're the Rangers, I think the question is why not?
Because he's an asshole.
I mean, of course, he's a drama queen, and you've seen those clips when he was when he played for Cleveland and Terry Francona came to take him out and he chucked the ball over the center field.
Over the stadium, which by the way, great throw. Rob Middle did that once, and he was held as a legend. I will say that. My dad claims that we don't have faith. No, I have faith. I'm just not going to let 1 year of Rangers completely negate the other 57 years. I don't think Trevor Bauer is a fit in any locker room. I will say this though, with the likes of Seager and Simeon and that group, if there is a locker room that could take him, I do think it's the Rangers. I just don't know if, so he pitched at a little tryout thing for Japanese baseball against Dodger AAA guys either yesterday or 2 days ago. Struck out like 3, but the guy even said he gave up a lot of hard hits. I just don't know if he doesn't seem and I'm not even talking about all the allegations with the women. Apparently, some of that apparently was them trying to still get money from him, but there's also just listening to like Terry Francona and other Cleveland Indians who say like, yeah, that dude just was a douche. He didn't listen to us. I don't think it's worth it. I think if you're chasing your first ever World Series, maybe. I think now that you have that, I think Texas, you don't have to be desperate anymore. You've got a lineup, man, with Seager and Simeon, and we ain't even talked about Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford and Jordan Hine. You've got a lineup that should win you 70 games no matter what. And then if you just rebuild your bullpen and you just kind of find starters that'll grind out for you, that gets you up to 85 to 90 wins. I don't think they're desperate for him.
Yeah, and another thing with Rangers pitching, they have a young core of pitchers as well that have, especially in the relief role, that have really shined in spring training. You look at a guy like Mark Church, a guy they drafted. He has pitched in 7 games so far in spring, has given 1 hit and no runs, and he struck out 7 while only walking 2. So that could be a back-end option for the bullpen as well. And then you look at in the starting rotation, a young guy who was on that World Series roster last year, Cody Bradford.
Exactly. That's exactly who I was about to go. That dude is dealing in the spring, guys.
He pitched 4 scoreless innings today, had 4 strikeouts. He did a phenomenal job today. I think before it's all said and done, by the time the spring comes to an end, I think he'll be the 5th man in that starting rotation, at least to start. Again, we won't know until halfway in the season what the status of Scherzer and DeGrom is, what they're going to do there. But I think once opening day gets here, Cody Bradford will be in that starting rotation.
All right, both of y'all. Noah, you start. Give me your AL West predictions, top 3.
1, Texas Rangers.
Hey.
2 Houston Astros. 3 Seattle Mariners.
Do they all 3 make the playoffs?
2 make the playoffs.
The AL, I mean, it's assuming that the Rangers continue and that Baltimore continues. And both of those teams – there's a world where both of them take step backs. Texas just having the hangover of the World Series. Baltimore, it just always seems like when a young team is ready to make it and they don't, they kind of step back. But the AL is going to be, it feels like baseball right now. It's very much the AL is where your World Series team's going to be.
I really think the Yankees are going to take a step up and replace I think the Mariners not going to make it, but I think the Yankees will. So that's my difference right there.
All right. What about you, Ryan?
My top three are the same. I'm going to take the Rangers winning the West with the Astros in second and with the Mariners taking third. I think with the Mariners, they're like the Rangers. Pitching could be their biggest question, but I think the Rangers have a more established both rotation and bullpen than the Mariners do right now because I think they're still trying to scramble to figure out who they want on that starting roster in both the bullpen and the starting rotation on opening day. I think the Astros have a lot of their guys coming back, especially in the starting rotation. You got Verlander coming back. You got Christian Javier, Rafael Montero. You got a lot of those guys coming back. So I think they have a more established both pitching and offense. They have a lot of established guys coming back. And I think, again, it'll be a neck-and-neck thing with the Rangers. They both finished 90 and 72 last year. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened again. But, with the Mariners, offensively, they're going to be fantastic. They're going to be the same level offensively than the Rangers are, or maybe just a slight step below, if nothing else. If they make a really good pitching trade at the deadline, at the All-Star break, and bring in a guy who comes in like Jordan Montgomery and just adds one missing piece to that starting rotation, that could bump them up to number 2 and get them a playoff spot.
Yeah, for me, the team that pivots the most is the Astros. I can easily see them winning this division, winning 100 games. I mean, for all the jokes about Rangers, Astros are still loaded. But I also can this is going to sound really weird because the Astros have won 2 World Series. They've been to 2 others. Yet it kind of feels like if that's the last run they have with this group, that I don't want to say underperformed, but when they won that first World Series, I think all of us, and I remember Noah and I joking about like, oh, this sucks because they're about to run off like 5 out of 6. And here we are, and I don't know how to say this. They front run really well, but when they get really, really pushed in World Series or in ALCSs, Washington and Texas, they tend to fold in the moment. And I don't know if that's a issue of the fabric of the team or just, hey, they just run into hot teams. Give Washington credit for when they won that World Series. Now, by the way, I don't want to be Washington in 5 years as a Ranger fan because y'all go look at Washington right now and they're like a 70-win middling team. I don't want that. That's all.
They are on the come up. It might be this year, but most likely next year. But they are on the come up.
Yeah, but man, again, you want to talk about, and we'll have Ryan on to talk more baseball. You want to talk about the AL West and the NL East, and I know the AL East is really, really good too. I still think Tampa Bay might take a step back, but that NL East, Atlanta and Philadelphia, I still feel like Philadelphia's story is not told yet because, damn, that team is so freaking talented, and they're so deep at such key positions. Gotta hate Philadelphia.
Every aspect of that team, but they were really talented. Again, they made it to the World Series 2 seasons ago, then back to the NLCS last year.
They were the team. I don't think Texas beats Philadelphia in the World Series.
I didn't think they would either. I completely agree with that.
When everything was evolving, and I think even knowing that talk, I was like, God dang it, Texas is about to make the World Series. They're going to lose again. It won't be a collapse, but Philadelphia's just really deep. And then Arizona just found a way to kind of get those wins. And I was so happy because even after game 2 and Arizona had won, I had no doubt that Texas. Now I still didn't watch 100% till game 5 because I would have, dude, if they'd have done what they did in 2011 again, I would be doing a show about the Bible right now. There's no way I'd be able to talk football ever again or sports ever again because the Cowboys have ruined me. But the Rangers, man, I couldn't have done 3 in a row where they lose a World Series.
It would have been heartbreaking. But you look at the playoff paths that both the Rangers and the Diamondbacks had to go through their playoff runs last year. They both had to go through a gauntlet. You look at the Rangers, they went through two of the top teams in the American League. You look at the Tampa Bay Rays and then the 110 win Baltimore Orioles, and then the Astros, their arch nemesis, who have kind of owned them in the past few years, and they just got it done. The first team in Major League playoff history to go undefeated on the road through a World Series championship run.
I don't know if they win a World Series if they don't sweep the first 2 rounds. The bullpen was so rested.
Yeah.
Because again, one of the little secrets about if you actually go back and look at the starting pitching in the World Series for Texas, it was okay. It wasn't great. In fact, I think Jordan Montgomery actually technically got a loss in his or a no decision. Evaldi was fine, but your bullpen, and it was the exact opposite for Arizona because they had those games with Philadelphia where they had to come back and they had to dig through. And you saw it Juan Castro, that pitch he threw to Garcia. He literally, if there was ever a day where you hey, did Castro float that on purpose? Because that ball had no break, but I think it was because Castro had been used like crazy amounts through the Philadelphia NLCS. And again, that's why when it comes down to it, it's not always the best team that wins. It's the team that has survived the most to that point. Because if you play Arizona, Philadelphia 100 times, Philadelphia wins that 90 times. The problem is the 7 that they need or the 4 that they needed in the playoffs, they just couldn't come up with.
Yeah. And it was the same thing with the Rangers too. I think if the Rangers had home field advantage in the ALCS, then they wouldn't have moved on. And neither team won a home game that entire series.
Yeah, that was a weird series.
Yeah, it was. But it was nice to see them because when they fell down 3-2 after those 3 straight losses at home, I thought they were dead in the water. And then they battled back. And Adolis Garcia, man, he earned that ALCS MVP. Just the games he had in Houston in Game 6 and Game 7, where he matched 3 home runs. And then he had a single, funnily enough, that hit the top of the wall. That could have been a double, but he was admiring it.
Well, just like a rematch of the 2019 World Series where neither team won a home game.
Yep, neither team. And that was the first time that it happened in 40 World Series. And then speaking of Garcia, it's kind of funny because he is so etched now, of course, in Texas Ranger history. I think he might have been on his way to an MVP in the World Series because until he got hurt, he was still raking. Yet, I see a world where Garcia is not on this team at the trade deadline.
Really?
You've got Evan Carter, you've got Wyatt Langford, you've got Seager and Simeon. If you're telling me you don't have I'm just saying this as a name, a Blake Snell type starter over in Philadelphia that they need a bat. Of all the guys, and I love Garcia, but of all the guys on that team, in 5 years, he's the least likely to still be on the Rangers.
Yeah, and I could see that. And especially if the Rangers, starting rotation or pitching overall is kind of on the lower end of what we might be expecting because it is kind of a seesaw depending on which way they could go. I really could see that because you look at Wyatt Langford, he's an outfielder. And if he keeps raking the way he does, I think he's already got it set already. But I think he'll be set to be the opening day starting designated hitter to replace Mitch Garver in that spot. And
yeah, no, I totally 100% agree.
Yeah, and it could be that situation to where Adolis Garcia still has a bunch of value. If you're just missing that one key arm, that could be something the Rangers do, but it might have to be a big trade. I don't know. I don't know if they'd trade him straight up for one strong arm. I guess it would have to depend on who they'd be trading for.
Yeah, of course.
How well they've been doing and how well he'd been doing for the Rangers.
How long is Bruce Bochy here?
Oh, man. I think it's so weird. I think this is his last season, regardless of how it ends. I really do. He came out of retirement last year and won his World Series again. I think especially if they somehow go back-to-back and they win it again, I think that for sure seals it. There could be some questions at the end of the season if they don't go all the way. But I think at the end of the season, regardless of how it ends, I think this will be his last season.
I would agree with you. I guess one of those weird things is I thought he was way older than he is. He's not even 70. He's 68.
Really? I thought he was older than that as well.
Exactly. See, he's one of those that he's always felt like he was older than he really is. I think the only way he retires is, like you said, they either win a World Series, they go back to back, which he's never done. Remember, with the Giants, it was every other year, or they do, injuries, whatever. They win 70 games, and he's like, you know what, I'm done. But I kind of feel like I was watching. So Texas Rangers on YouTube, they've been doing kind of like a Ranger rewind where they're looking back at last year, but they're also looking at spring training stuff. And I don't know, man. I kind of feel like he's all in for let's see what happens over the next 5 years. I want to run with this team. And you kind of feel like with the contracts that Seager and Simeon have, and they're your foundation. As long as they're here and they're performing, the Rangers will be competitive. So you've got to feel that you've got at least 5 years of those, barring, crazy injuries, all that kind of stuff. I see a world, and maybe I'm just, I'm dreaming. I see a world where Bruce Bochy's here for 5 years, and we're legitimately talking about a Ranger dynasty.
It could be. You know what? Now that I know because I thought he was close to his mid-70s.
I did too.
That's kind of why I answered the way I did. But I could see that too, because the Rangers, they have a top 3 farm system in Major League Baseball. And
they're going to eventually start having to trade out of that, of course. That's how true. That works. That's why the Astros in 2017 had the number 1 farm system, and now in 2024 they have the 20th. That's just how it works.
Yeah, and they traded some last season as well. I think part of that Jordan Montgomery trade. No, yeah, it was when they traded Ronald Acuña's younger brother, Luis Angel Acuña. He was projected to be a starter in Major League Baseball within the next 3 to 5 years. I mean, I think he was only 19 or 20 maybe.
Yep. Yeah, he's going to be a stud, I think. But you think so too. Wyatt Langford.
Yeah.
They're playing the same position.
Yeah, and I'm so excited to see Wyatt Langford. I really am. He's been raking. He leads the Cactus League, or he tied with the leading Cactus League with home runs right now. And he has the most RBIs of all the entire Rangers lineup through spring. I'm excited, man. I think defense is probably his biggest question going into the major leagues. If
he's not terrible.
I mean, no, it's not terrible. What I'm saying is offense is definitely his strength. He's got a crazy power in the bat. He gets not just home runs, he gets doubles as well. But he strikes out a lot too, because he is a lot of times swinging for the fences.
What other sports are you a fan of? Of course, if you don't know, Ryan Fox will be doing a lot of high school stuff for us, but we're going to be bringing him on here on OutDrank The Coverage as well. What other sports are you fans of?
Football definitely big time. I kind of casually keep up with basketball and hockey. I do like golf. I don't really know many of the players on tour. I just like
a golf show. We'll let you have a golf show if you'd like. Intern Nelly and I will skip. Speaking of, though, by the way, there was some breaking news today where apparently the Saudi LIV League has basically said, hey, that whole thing we talked about 9 months ago about agreeing with the PGA, yeah, we ain't going to do that now. Apparently, they're going to go on their own and just be their own little golf league. I used to love golf. I don't like where I don't like where anything is at now. I'm just an old man now at this point. I hate everything. I do like that the best Rangers Langford. Wait, what? What did we say? Anyway, so Ryan will be joining us for baseball and other talk. So did you say you are a hockey fan?
I do. It kind of recently, what did it for me was I went to my first Stars game last season during their playoff run. I think it was their second round match again. I don't remember if it was the first round or second round when they played the Minnesota Wild.
First round.
It was first round. It was game 2, and just the atmosphere in the American Airlines Arena. I know it was a playoff game, but that's a top 3 sports atmosphere I've ever experienced.
Hockey is the best live sport, period.
It was awesome.
All of us have been to all of them now. Noah's been to the Cowboys. Noah's been to the Rangers. You've been to the Rangers. I love baseball live, but hockey live, there's fun. Just something, because there's so much going on, especially when you start really knowing hockey and you start seeing one of the things real simple, home team gets to decide line changes, little things like that. So the road team has to drop their line out, and then the home team can be, all right, you're doing that, well, we're going to counter with that. That's why in hockey, if you're a road team that wins, that's pretty impressive, because you're literally being everything you do the other team can counter, and you have to just accept that. But yeah, home hockey at home, man, there's nothing better than a hockey game, and it's really fun. Noe and I have talked about this many times. From 2011 to now, Dallas sports have struggled. Stars struggled. I mean, Mavs struggled. Cowboys. It feels like, and it might not happen, but it feels like Dallas is about to enter an era in the professional sports that there's a lot of playoffs and there's a lot of champions.
Yeah, for sure. And then
Arlington Renegades, they've won a title. Noah's excited about that, I know.
I watched that game. I like, you see, the thing with football, I am a advocate of year-round football. I know you said you weren't a big fan of it. I am an advocate. Get all the football you can throw at me. Let's have it. I'll watch it.
Hey, do you know where the quarterback that won them the XFL title, do you know what college he went to?
Oh, God.
Luis Perez.
Yeah, do you know what college Luis Perez went to?
I haven't had enough alcohol for this.
A&M Commerce National Champion 2017, baby. I'm a proud 2004 alum of A&M. By the way, if there's a God shined on me in 2017 because back in 2002, I worked on the A&M Commerce broadcast as they went a sparkling 1-10. And when I say 1-10, that doesn't even speak to how bad. Like, this wasn't one of those, hey, they went 1-10, but they were competitive. No, they weren't. Like, we're talking about flying out to New Mexico to watch them lose to Eastern New Mexico 42-0. And
what was the one team they beat that season?
It was some crappy team in the non-con. It was like legitimate, like a JV team. And we didn't even do that game because it was such a crappy team. We were like, we don't even want to drive for that. They'll win plenty going forward. Yeah, that was the only win of the year. But anyway, I do appreciate you, Ryan Fox, for joining us. You're going to be joining us here through the year for football, basketball, baseball, and all that, but you are going to be our Ranger guy. 2 weeks from now, we'll bring you on and we'll kind of talk all of the league. Let's prepare for this. Let's give our picks for, who's going to make the playoffs, who's going to make the championship series, and who is going to win the World Series. For people out there, how can they find you on social media?
So on Twitter, I'm at Alpha34Bravo, and then I'm on Instagram at _Alpha Bravo_. That's where you can find me on social media.
And you're going to be joining us a lot for high school. You are one of our hosts of the Central Texas Football Podcast. Also going to be doing a Whitney District show. Also so many other shows. So you're going to be popping up all over here.
Yeah, and I'm really fired up for this year. I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm looking forward to it, man. Let's roll.
All right, man. We'll talk to you next time.
All right. Yes, sir. Appreciate y'all.
Yes, sir. All right, Noe, tell me how wrong Ryan Fox is and why. No, I'm kidding. I think we had a pretty good show tonight, sir.
Yeah, longer than I thought it'd be. Past my bedtime.
Wait. Is that like you're going to message me? Like, I don't need those shows. I need $10 million a year. I'm going to be your best pass rusher. Are you trying to say we're a cap? We have a lot of money, but we've lost for so long. We just need Noe Tedla to be. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Intern Noe. I don't know if you do you want your last name?
Wait. Are you taking the intern tag off? I'm actually going to get paid.
You know what? I think it's time. I legitimately think it's time.
Did I spike your drink finally? The right percentage?
Yes.
This is late breaking news.
There we go. No, he is a.
Oh shit.
Grant Goodwin's going to be emailing me tomorrow. I did not approve of this, sir. I'm not saying he's 1/3, but
your dad agrees. Your dad agrees. That's all that matters.
Wait, does he?
Yes.
Wait, no. Dad, no. Dad, I told you about this.
Good man.
Oh, God.
Solid dude.
It's been a fun show. By the way,
I've always said it.
We'll be back again in 2 weeks to do. Here's the crazy thing. Again, it's funny how we've planned these because we literally just did the show that eventually will be on. But even next week or in 2 weeks, we're going to record again on the 25th. You and I are getting together the 21st and the 22nd. We're going to watch the 21st. We're going to watch some NCAA first round. We want to talk about that because we've never really talked about that kind of stuff. And then the 22nd, we're going to also watch some of that. But we're also going to start our first OutDrank The Coverage look back for 2024. And you and I are going to do the top 5 rivalries for the Dallas Cowboys. And this is really fun because you and I, when we hung out last week, we're talking about it. And there are so many ways. Look, to be fair, we talk about the Cowboys, blah, they don't win, blah, blah. But the Cowboys, to a lot of other teams, are their rival. And so it's going to be fun to kind of figure out who the Cowboys, as Cowboy fans, who do we like want to beat every year, no matter what. And I think that series is going to be an absolute blast.
Oh, I think so too. And I think my opinion of the top 5 is going to be completely different than your opinion.
Yeah, and so how we're going to do this is we're going to go up by each. We're going to decide off the air, like, okay, what are the 5? And then we're also going to have honorable mentions. And I think that you and I talked about one of the ways to do the honorable mention is probably, I think, a good ways to do it by eras or decades.
For sure.
Because, I mean, there's a whole world of Cowboy fans that don't understand that in the 70s, it was, of course, Washington, but it was also the Vikings and the Rams. Go look back at the playoff history and look at how many times those teams played each other. And then in the 80s, it's completely different. And, of course, the 90s and the 2000s. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to be a blast. And what we'll do is, of course, we'll have our top 5. And each episode will focus on one team as far as that. I figured the best way to do it is, of course, show some video. But we have, like, the best wins and the best losses. Because here's the thing. I know this sucks. But it's not a rivalry if you always win. You got to lose some really important games. Yep. That's what makes you want to hate that team.
Yep.
And so it's just going to be a blast. We're going to have fun doing that. Of course, as soon as our Roadhouse Bad Movies and a Drink, we still have a league series to finish. Season 4 will drop in the next 3 weeks. We have so many shows. This is a good thing to have. But anyway, I think we have happy houred out this one. These are really, really fun. We're closing out, and we still got 1,500 viewers. That's awesome.
I'm not sure why they're still here, but I'm glad y'all are here.
Because of Ryan Fox. Because
Ryan brought that 1,450 views.
We're all just living in Ryan's world at this point, man.
That's true.
At this point. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode of Happy Hour. We'll see you in 2 weeks on this Monday. That'll be, I think, the 25th.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be the 20th. Thank you. That's why I hired an accountant so he can fix my math. Don't say anything about my math, Dad. Shut up. Anyway, until next time, he's Noe the Pro.
Yes.
Terry.
Finally, upgrade.
This has been Happy Hour 3. OutDrank The Coverage right here on L4